Hey guys, it is Charles Austin here with Liquid Blue Cabarete in Cabarete, Dominican Republic. And people have asked, what equipment am I using and how has that equipment held up throughout the test of times? So we're not gonna be talking about the board, we're not gonna be talking about the mast, we're gonna be talking about the foil. So it's a little bit windy today. Right here I got the 7 Seas, which came out in 2022, I believe. It has a little bit of white on it. I was just sanding it yesterday. Just like to give it a little bit of sanding. But this is the 1200. This is a 7.5 aspect ratio wing. So it's in between a high aspect and a mid aspect. It's essentially a mid aspect wing because it's not a true high aspect like the Eagle is, for example. And this wing here has so far been great. It is one of the wings that you notice it has these little fences on it, on the front wing, as well as on the stabilizer. And people wonder, what does that actually do? They say it gives a little bit of grip, a little bit of traction, doesn't affect the performance. But to be honest, after testing this and going back and forth between different wings, I haven't really felt specifically what this does. I have been using the Phantom, which is the most, just gonna have to store that there, it might blow away, which is the most common foil that I was using before. But then I started testing out the Eagle, I started testing out the 7 Seas, and this wing comes in 3 sizes. It comes in the 1400, comes in the 1200, comes in the 1000. So this is the middle range. And I like to get the middle range of equipment, generally speaking, because it sort of should give me an idea about how it's gonna feel overall. And I know that if I go smaller, I might be sort of gaining certain aspects like maneuverability, more speed, and if I go bigger, I might be getting more lift. And sorry, on the smaller ones I get less lift, but on the bigger ones I might be getting more lift, a little bit less of a top speed, and also a little bit less maneuverability. So this is the middle range one. And so far, look how windy it is. It's just blowing everything away. So far, this 1200 has been perfect. I've had other guys test it. I've been testing it out myself for prone foiling as well. But in regards to wing foiling, this wing, even though it's a 1200, it is essentially a all-around wing that works in the light wind, works in the strong winds. Right now, we have about 20 plus knots of wind, and I will go on this foil and I will ride it and I'll have a blast. What do I do when it gets stronger winds though? I might put the track a little bit more back, and also if the waves are a little bit bigger, but the lift that's on this is super, especially that considering I'm riding a sinker board. So I'm riding a 33 liter board, and most of the time, let's say we have an average of around 15 to 18 knots. Many days that are like this strong, but let's just say the average. And this wing has held up. I have jumped with it, but I'm not a big jumper, so I'm generally wave riding. And in terms of how it's held up super. I've ridden it in small waves and I've ridden it in big waves. And for people that are looking to sort of upgrade from the beginner foils, the 7 Seas range, I believe, covers it. Because before it was all about the Phantom, and I still believe that the Phantom is one of the best foils out there. I've been able to test the 940, I've been able to test the 1280, 1480, 1680. I tested out the 1080 as well. And the 1080 for myself has been the favorite. I still, for example, yesterday was trying the 940 and was jumping with it, and it's a great foil, but I am a little bit heavier, I ride smaller gear, and I like to just have that little bit extra lift when I need it. And the 940 is almost on the verge for me of being too small, but I can still ride it, and I haven't been trying the other ones, the 840 and the 740. But this, going back to it, this 7 Seas, if you're looking for an upgraded foil, let's say you're riding a 1600, you're riding an 1800, or you even currently have a 1500 foil, for example, that you're just feeling is a little bit too slow, a little bit sluggish, not offering you good lift, not easy to pump, this is where this wing comes in, this wing plane. The 1400, I would say, is more of the beginner-friendly one. So guys that are a little bit heavier or a little bit in lighter winds, or just want something that's still very easy, like let's just imagine it has training wheels on it, the 1400 is that. The 1200 is for the guys that are slowly past that beginner stage and becoming an intermediate rider. And this foil can mow the lawn perfectly fine, but it can also perform. And that's the nice thing about it. Some foils only do one thing great, but this thing covers a whole range. And I almost believe it's, to a certain extent, a bit of the Phantom killer, because the Phantom, even though it's super accessible foil, this thing is a little bit more accessible and has great features in the terms of its performance when it's on the water. It glides, it starts easy, it pumps well. And I've seen the whole range from guys using the 1400, myself using the 1200, and people using the 1000. And the 1000, when I was riding behind a guy with it, I can tell that he had a couple extra miles per hour, let's say, in speed ahead of me, and a little bit more nimbleness to him. Though, I myself, like I said, for testing purposes, have been using the 1200, and I've been using it for a long time, and it's held up. So what can you do with this 1200? Well, it's always gonna come with a standard setup. The only thing you could really sort of do if you wanted to is change your fuselage to something either longer or shorter, depending if you wanted to pump more efficiently or not. Shorter you go on the fuselage, less sort of lift and pump. Like, you have to pump more essentially to make it in laden terms. And if you have a longer fuselage, you're gonna have sort of these slower strokes, easier to pump, and you're gonna have a little bit more glide with that. But it depends on your spot, depends on your style. But if you could just get the plane as is recommended by the factory, then it's perfect. And I highly recommend it because it's been lasting a long time. It hasn't had any sort of questionable, look at that dog. It hasn't had any sort of a questionable situations, and it's just held up. So I definitely recommend this to people, and primarily I recommend this to people that are realistically beginner intermediate riders. If you're trying to push your limits and become a intermediate professional, let's say, this wing will have some limitations for you, but it will be a great wing to have in your quiver for those lighter days, for prone foiling, for even wing foiling. And for me, if I was to keep one of these in my quiver, I would probably, it'd be a tough debate, but if this was to be my light wind plane, I would probably keep it in the 1200. But if I was looking for it to maybe be a bit more performance-y, and I was using something else in lighter winds, or maybe I was using a bigger wing, hand wing when I'm foiling in light winds, then I could probably opt in for the 1000. In the future, I don't know if this is gonna come in any other sizes, but for now, this 1400, this 1200, and the 1000 is a great range for most riders that are going from beginner becoming an intermediate rider. The 1400 super accessible. The 1200, I've let some people test it, and they just said, "Wow, it's a step up from like a 1500 range foil," but they don't lose that stability. They're still comfortable getting that lift out of the water, and they have a good speed that is manageable. And then they're able to start playing around a little bit more by pumping easier and enjoying themselves and maneuvering on the water with ease. So yeah, I wouldn't get too lost on, for example, this fences feature. I don't think this is a, let's say, the selling point of why someone would go with it. I think this is just a feature that comes with it. But the shape itself, the construction, the user friendliness and usability of it has been amazing. And a lot of the videos we film, I'm using this foil, this 1200, whether it's proning or whether it is winging. So that's my review, guys, for this 1200 7Cs. Even though this is for the 7Cs lineup, it's an amazing foil. We're gonna be doing a review of the Eagle. I've been using that in the 990 size, and that's a higher aspect foil. That is, I would say, for more advanced riders, but it's also a great foil on its own, where it offers great lift. It's just that it needs a higher speed to be functioning properly. And this works on both a low speed and can bring you up to a more comfortable higher speed without really being like a nervous foil or anything of that nature. So this is a great foil. We're gonna be reviewing the Eagle. I think the Eagle and the 7Cs, when they're side by side, are two different wings that are supposed to be in their own categories. They're very hard to compare because they're different. But this 7 Seas is great, and if you're considering to get one, it's a great foil and I'd recommend it. And especially if you're on that beginner going into intermediate stage, or you're beginner and you're gonna, essentially, you're always gonna be progressing. So you're always gonna be a beginner forever in a way, because you're always learning. But if you're on that sort of like, you're already foiling back and forth and you're having a good time, but now you just want to sort of step up, then this is a great step up from most foils. In terms of the F1 line, I would say this is a step up from the Gravity series, and this is also a potential step up from the Phantom series on the larger sizes. And depending, if you're feeling that you don't have enough lift and you want to have something with a little bit more lift, maybe get your hands on one of these to try it out, and then make a decision there that maybe the 7 Seas series is the one for you. And then once you're more advanced, the small Phantoms are still amazing. The Eagles are potentially as well suitable for you. And then the new SK8, which is gonna be coming out this April 2023, is also potentially an option. And we're gonna be doing reviews about all that. So in any case, guys, this is Charles Osterlin with Liquid Blue Cabarete in Cabarete, Dominican Republic. And I just wanna remind you, if you got any value out of this, make sure to like and subscribe. The wind is so strong, it just broke an umbrella right behind you. And this is Cabarete. I'm gonna leave you with a view about it. I'm just looking at the guys right behind coming to recover this umbrella. But it is very windy, and it's gonna be windy for the whole summer. We're releasing a video about how it is in the summertime in Cabarete, Dominican Republic, and it's essentially a great time for wind sports. Not so much for reading a book on the beach, unless you go hide, but if you wanna do some wind sports, then summertime is the time. And that's about it, guys. I'm gonna leave you with the view of Cabarete at the end of March on a day that is roughly 20, 25 knots, steady. And it's been like that since the morning.